This has been a very hot growing season for the last little while, and our high tunnel out at our neighbors is holding on. It's doing its thing. It's actually producing a pretty immense amount of tomatoes right now and some other lovely things. But in some ways, it's kind of gotten away from me. So I'd like to share in an honest way what this high tunnel looks like this morning. We've got an overcast, rainy day. It's cool enough in here to work for a bit. So I'm going to try to get caught up and share with you lovely folks what is going on in here. Starting with a few things that feel really exciting and wonderful and pretty functional at the moment. We've got sun gold tomatoes that are trellised up single line to the top of this high tunnel. A lot of the work that needs to happen this morning is actually cutting back and managing in here. I think with such a tight space you can't have 40, 50 tomatoes and just let them kind of do their thing for the season. They do need to be managed. But these sun golds have been cranking out lots and lots of fruit. They love the heat. They're doing really well with the dry in here. I think it makes the fruits a little bit sweeter and denser. But certainly some work in here is to clean them up, which will liberate a little bit more light to these turmeric, which are here. They could use a lot more water. We hand water in here. We don't have access to a well for this space, but these probably could use a good many gallons today. They're appreciating being in the shade of the tomato. In fact, there's some over there that are the deepest green are underneath a volunteer thornless blackberry and box elder maple. I got to cut that back quite a bit too. Definitely don't want a full-size tree in here, but it's a beautiful water-pulling plant, and it could be a trellis for both tomatoes and thornless blackberries. So maybe I'll prune that first. The box elder has been cut back to make sure there's no pressure on the plastic up there. And people might be wondering, why would you possibly let a tree grow in here? So we have box elder here, we have redbud in a few spots, and the plants that are around them actually feel really healthy and happy. The tomatoes don't seem like they're under stress. The turmeric in the shade of the box elder seems like it's going through some of the hottest, driest days with a little bit more grace. And it's physically a pretty strong being. It's like, it's there, it's tethered. And so we can have thornless blackberry or tomatoes or cucumbers leverage the verticality of that tree and just keep cutting and using it to really protect and cover the soil, for example, around this young banana plant that would really like even moisture, good warmth in the soil, but nice even moisture and a lot of nutrient for the worms to deliver to that banana. Or the turmeric that's growing here in the shade of dahlias and sun gold tomatoes and box elder, but also could really use more soil protection, more retention of water. This is not a desert plant, it's a jungle plant. So the more we can cover the soil, soak deep, but then have the worms be able to come up and eat the leaves of the box elder, the better. And all of this is happening with this tree growing right in this space, pulling water up from down below and delivering it. Lots of cutting needs to happen. I've cut this probably 6 times this season, but each time there's a yield. It's time to deal with these tomatoes and get them trellised. I realized I should have brought a bowl specifically for tomatoes. I brought some for seeds, but maybe one less seed bowl, and let me do a tomato harvest first. Boy, oh boy, these sort of complex systems, they're lovely and wonderful and resilient, and also a little bit overwhelming. So like, there's lettuce that's ready to make seeds, so that's one collection and harvest moment. And then the greens of things like the perennial kale and seedling amaranth, those are actually very, very useful to the chickens. So there's a pile of prunings and trimmings that go in one area, and then the mullein I almost didn't want to cut because, boy, what a lovely ground cover and deep nutrient accumulator, but we need space to start sowing fall things. So this will start becoming a living mulch, or a mulch in the middle of the walkway, green manure, along with the tomato leaves. So hopefully we can compost and windrow non-chicken feeding greens in the middle here. And then there's the tomatoes, which are amazing. They're really cranking, but 2 weeks, 3 weeks of not actively managing internodes and runners and splitters and all this kind of stuff, and it's all very puzzly. It's lovely, it's wonderful, it stands in opposition to really effective business stuff, but luckily, we're not selling tomatoes, we're enjoying those for our family. We're trying to learn and share ideas, and hopefully that's the value that comes from this. The important part is just to get some open areas. So as I collect lettuce and cilantro and chard seed, we can leave the stems that have unripened seed over these areas. When we water, that can soak and knock the finishing seeds down into the soil, and they have a chance to come up. And so as the tomatoes and the turmeric and the anise hyssop and things senesce from the cold, we'll have an understory of all these greens So you can't do that when it looks like this. This is lovely and great, but there's a lot of like damaged kale that needs to come out. The red clover, absolutely beautiful, wonderful plant, but maybe not a fit for this space, which is so sprawling. In one way, this bed feels absolutely ridiculously crazy to me. It's on the south end of the high tunnel, but it also holds this immense amount of wonder and greatness. I think the Italian oak leaf lettuce here, very hot and dry, hardy lettuce. It's a little bit closer to a dandelion, but still delicious. The seed head might have thousands of seeds in here, and there's a few of them. It just took a while to wait long enough. We probably should have tied these up or supported them. Similar idea with all this cilantro. So this is now coriander seed, and also it will be cilantro. You can see outside here where it does have access to rain. It's actively raining right now. We dumped some wood chips and some raw compost, nothing finished, and laid down some of those cilantro heads, coriander heads, and some of those lettuces over aged-ish wood chips, kind of raw compost. And where that happened here, you can see some brassicas. So these are different varieties of turnips and kales and things like that. And then this is cilantro, all from just letting those heads bolt in the high tunnel. So these are just straight up wood chips. They're a little bit older. We mixed them with a tiny bit of compost. By all accounts, definitely not finished compost, but with enough seed, it works out. And as wild as this is, letting this high tunnel get to this place where there are thousands upon thousands of tiny seeds ready to germinate is actually really valuable. But I got to get through there because I don't even know how the peppers are back there. Took a break to do some lunch and other things. Brought a bowl of nice tomatoes back into the kitchen for Sasha to start processing into other lovely things. It's funny to come back out here and things do feel like they've moved along a little bit. This area is a little clearer. Picked most of what was ripe, but left a few things there, and the area underneath is a little bit cleaner. Likewise on this side, you can see the main walkway. This is all debris that we can walk on to have breakdown in position. Maybe we'll put some wood chips on top once it's all said and done to keep it from really drying out. But now we've got some areas we can actually get some seed into, and I'm noticing with some of these perennial kale, there's a lot of the cabbage moth damage. So maybe we're going to cut a bunch of these back. Since they're perennial, it'll be like a coppicing cut and let them regrow, kind of reduce the amount of those worms in here. We'll see if I have the bandwidth for that today. But collect more seed, clean up some more stuff underneath, and get a lot more of the areas underneath the tomatoes, underneath the peppers cleared so we can seed it to our fall items. A lot to do in here. And even with a good amount of time so far today, it doesn't look that different. I'm using these tubs we got from a local restaurant that was closing, that we bought them from. And that's heads, trimmed out heads of maybe 10 or 15 different varieties of lettuce that are close enough to making seed. We can bring this back into the garage or put it in a warm space and let those seeds maturate and crumble them off a little bit later. And it's a way to collect seeds without being too fancy about it. Here, all this cilantro on the stalks, a lot of it's ready to be harvested, so I'm going to wring it out over this and capture as much as I can of the seed, and then we can throw these stalks outside or even in here in these cleared areas to be really deliberate about re-sowing those plants. Just going through and grinding the stalks together reveals a pretty immense amount of seed. So that's all very fresh cilantro seed. We could also winnow this and clean it out and use it for cooking as coriander seed, fresh homegrown organic coriander seed. Some of them are underripe, but whatever. And the one, I'm not going to try to get every last seed out of here because now these stalks can be laid to be our, not only the source of seed for cilantro in a new garden bed, but also the plant marker because I know what cilantro stalks look like, and also the mulch to protect the bed while the seeds germinate. Definitely a pretty low fuss way of saving seed and using them in other spaces. This is something I will not let happen again. This chard was growing on this side next to this lovely little banana here, and this Hordenova netting, which is normally used for tomatoes or for peas, this material here. I let the chard go into there because I thought, oh, that'd be hold the seed up and keep it all clean. Now the seed is shattering everywhere. I got to snip, snip, snip a million little spots. I'm collecting a lot of seed. There's a lot down there. Some's underripe and needs to hang in the garage for a bit. Some I could just strip off and clean. But my gosh, what a complex way to deal with all this seed, but I'm going to do it because it needs to happen. The seed of the chard is harvested. This chard plant's been cut back, and out of the Hordenova, probably many hundred, if not 1,000 chard seeds shot all over the place here. So if you're going to save seed in this very informal, loose way, you have to also be equally tolerant / excited about, wow, I'm getting the chard seed from here, and I guess that's what's going to happen underneath. Because in order for it to maturate enough to harvest the seed, like this lettuce here, if we wait a little longer, these first seeds are going to drop first. So it automatically renews, that's lovely, but if your intent is extremely accurate and deliberate crop rotation practices, this is not compatible with that. I'm psyched to see chard under banana. We'll see what that what that polyculture looks like this fall, because there's no way I'm scrounging for another 1,000 seeds that just shattered. I might wind down on working in here for today pretty soon. There's just always unlimited things to work on, but made some headway in some good ways. One thing I'd like to experiment with, but I'd love some community feedback on this first. These are all perennial kale seedlings or clones that we've taken over the years, and the brassica moth that lays these little guys, which I know I could come in here and squish, 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 but whatever. I'm not going to do that. I just added a bunch of catnip leaves on these. I know that that's somewhat repulsive to soft-bodied insects. I'm leaning towards the idea of cutting them back quite a bit to trigger fresh regrowth and see if that breaks the cycle. Do folks have experience with that? Clearly these are not going to work for us for eating, but if I cut them back, there's an immense amount to feed our hens. And I just wonder, without using sprays or other kind of interventions like that, are there management techniques for mid-season brassica, like big blocks of brassica getting whaled on by cabbage moth worms? That's a neat trick. Is there co-planting? Is there anything along that line that folks want to share? For now, I'm going to cut a few just to see how they respond, release some Malokia and some other plants that are in here that need more light, and get my walkway back. But I'd love to get some feedback from folks before I go full on with it. Not much of a pruning, but enough to get through to water some of the other plants that are happening here and to access the tomatoes from the other side. And I don't think the chickens are going to complain to have a pile of greens with some cosmetic damage, but that are loaded with juicy little worms, so that's all right for now. I think on video probably the before and after does not look that dramatic. It certainly doesn't look like what it should for how long the video is, I guess, but this is my process. It's what we're working on, and where it's wild, it's weedy, it's complex, okay, there's that. It's also very resilient. We water by hand in here once or twice a week. There's no drip irrigation, there's no grid tie, there's no well dependency for this space. The complexity, the woody figs, the trees that are drawing stuff up, the dynamic accumulators and the water accumulators, the deep mulch, all of that confers actual real resilience to how dry it gets in here. It's dry, but it's not punishingly dry, and there's not water stress. You notice there's no black plastic for the mulch. That's partly because it's all green life for the mulch. There's living plants that we're chopping and dropping and nutrient cycling. So where it lacks in tidiness and clarity and all that, it excels in being actually here without a ton of inputs, and that feels pretty important to us. I'll keep plugging away so that this is a walkable jungle of food and medicine. It's getting closer by the moment, but for now, give me some feedback on these brassicas. What are some neat co-companion tricks or insects to draw in? Like who do we support to eat the cabbage moths? Either is it birds? Do we put in bird roosts in here that they catch the moths and eat them? Which birds like that? That'd be a really neat design layer. This is really the only plant in here that has a lot of cosmetic damage, and it's because they're really hosting those moths in a lovely way, but in a way where I'd like to see a little bit fresher green. So we'll cut for now and then see what happens, but let me know what you think should happen and we'll go from there. We'll do another update later when it's even more wild and get it slightly less wild over the course of many minutes of talking about it. Thanks for watching. Take care.